In the last episode, we saw that Alicia found many flaws in Lee's ideals and publicly criticized her in front of everyone. This has made Alicia popular at school, and now everyone is saying that she is the worthless girl who bullied Lee. Seeing this, Alicia feels pleased and says, "That's the way. This much hate is perfect for a villainess." Meanwhile, we see the guy who, upon seeing Alicia again, gets very angry. At that moment, Jill also gets annoyed and wonders why everyone sides with Lise even though she gives such bad ideas and then sits peacefully drinking tea with everyone. Alicia comments that it means it will take more time to bring Lise to the position she deserves. In other words, she needs to spread her bad reputation even more to become the ultimate villainess. But first, they should go home, as they need to head to Rayona tonight, and she'll finish her homework before that. The scene then shifts to Rayona, where Alicia asks Rebecca if she has gathered the villagers' stories. Rebecca responds affirmatively, saying that, as expected, the villagers' views are quite negative towards outsiders. Many even said that if they ever got a chance to leave, they would destroy the outside world. Lise warns Rebecca that this task is dangerous and that she should prioritize her safety, especially since she has only one leg and wouldn't be able to escape if something happened. Rebecca assures her that she'll be fine, as everyone knows Alicia has her back, so no one will mess with her. Rebecca also shares her realization that since people were born in the village, they can't imagine any changes here, which leads them to give up. However, she, who nearly died but survived, is now trying to inspire change, giving people a sliver of hope, and she wants to increase that hope because any change has to come from the villagers themselves. This surprises Alicia, as she had thought the setup was perfect. Rebecca then asks if Alicia, looking from the outside, thinks there's a chance for the village to be freed. Alicia replies that due to Lee's strong influence, public interest has increased, but they're not at a stage where they can take action yet. Hearing this, Will also agrees, saying change doesn't happen overnight, so there's no need to rush. Rebecca then suggests growing some of the crops found outside within the village and asks Alicia if she'd share them. Alicia firmly refuses, saying that a villainess would never do that, and it would be interesting to see how the population adapts without external help. In the next scene, Henry approaches Alicia and asks if she's writing about Rayona or if it's a written proposal. Alicia, ignoring him, asks why he's alone and why she hasn't seen him with brother Alan recently. Henry explains that he's put some distance between them since, although they've always been together since birth, since joining the academy, everything has revolved around Lise, and even Alan has become obsessed with her. At this point, Lise appears and reassures Henry that it's okay if he and Alan think differently. He should trust himself. Blushing, Henry feels like Lise saved him, though he tells Alicia he's here to talk negatively about Lise, not praise her. Henry recounts how he told Alan that many of Lise's points in their debate were illogical, but Alan disliked hearing anything critical of her and left. Henry tells Alicia that he feels like he barely knows Alan anymore and believes he shouldn't spend time with Lise and her followers, expressing confidence that what Alicia says about Lise is correct and offering to join her. He then invites her to the king's next tea party, which Lise will also attend. The next scene shows the tea party, where Alicia's older brother tells her not to say anything foolish. Alicia agrees, although she internally comments that this isn't going to be an ordinary tea party. She recalls that this event, called the Saint Test, was in the game and awarded Saint points for choosing the correct answers. In the game, the villainess didn't attend this party, but now that she has been invited, it's essentially a villainess test and a gauge of her performance as Lise watcher. At the tea party, Lise becomes happy to see Albert, Alan, and Henry and even happier to see Alicia. Alicia mockingly apologizes to Lise, saying it must be awful for her to have to put up with her presence, to which Lise says it's not a problem at all, but rather she's glad Alicia is there. This behavior from Alicia irritates everyone else, and Fiend observes that Lise and Alicia are a big mystery. They can't tell if they're friends or enemies. The scene shifts as the king arrives, and everyone thanks him for the invitation. He assures them that it's just a simple tea party and that he simply wanted to thank them for being friends with his son, urging them to relax. Lise expresses her gratitude to the king, which annoys Alicia as she thinks Lise is acting as though she's more noble than the king himself. Alicia reflects that in the game, you needed a high score in the Saint Test to unlock the true ending. Observing everyone's behavior, she notes that while most people act exactly as in the game, Prince, surprisingly, is looking at her rather than behaving coldly as he did in the game. This strikes her as strange since, in the game, the prince only smiled in front of the heroine and was quite stone-hearted toward Alicia. The king then brings up Alicia's prediction from 3 years ago about Durin's economic downfall. Alicia recalls that this was back when she was hiding in the academy. The king continues, explaining that Duran's current situation has unfolded just as she predicted, and he's surprised by her insight at such a young age. Lise mentions that Duran was well prepared financially, but Alicia argues that their productivity and capacity were weak, and the measures Lise refers to are 4 years old and insufficient. She adds that assuming their measures were effective is a significant weak point in Lise's judgment. This infuriates Lise supporters again. As they are leaving, Eric says, "You always put Lise down. What exactly is your opinion?" To this, Alicia says, "Duran is still weak, so in my opinion, we should take control over it." Hearing this, Lise says, "But that would be quite a bad thing to do." However, Alicia's companions all agree with her. Then, Alicia explains, "Our kingdom doesn't really need a small nation like Duran, but we should be concerned about the country of Level. Level is a much larger country, and our relations with them are somewhat strained. Taking over Duran won't benefit our nation much, but if we don't, Level might seize Duran, which would be very disadvantageous for us." Hearing this, Gale agrees, saying, "Yes, you are right. My father has also told me that things are a bit tense at the border we share with Level." Alicia then adds, "But think about how the people of Duran will feel if we take over." Alicia responds, "It's quite foolish to worry about a neighboring country and risk our own nation." Lise then says, "But isn't there anything we can do for them?" Alicia replies, "If you want to help them, then use your brain. They don't need temporary help from another nation. They need economic recovery within their own borders. For example, they could export their local specialties to make a profit." Lise then suggests, "Duran's potatoes are quite famous. They could sell those, but the type of potatoes they grow aren't very popular here, so their demand might be lower in other countries." Then Lise adds, "I have an idea. Why don't they make a few modifications in their value chain? If the whole country produces them, their profits will increase significantly." Hearing this, all of Lise's companions are pleased and praise her idea. Lise thanks them, but the king understands that the real help didn't come from Lise but from Alicia. He tells everyone, "As a king, I feel very proud to know that there are such talented people in my nation." Alicia also feels a bit relieved, and she thinks to herself, "I think I've passed the villainess test as Lise's watcher." In the next scene, we see Alicia heading home, feeling quite exhausted. She mentions, as the party ended, Lise's companions didn't seem as fawning around her, which was quite unusual, so I decided to leave. By the way, where is the way out? Alicia searches for the exit and notices various portraits of the royal family. She then spots a portrait of a child and remarks, "This child looks just like the prince, but his skin tone is slightly different, so he can't be the prince. And the person with him looks familiar." Just then, the prince arrives and tells Alicia, "This child is my father, and the person with him is his father. I mostly resemble my father, but I inherited my skin tone from my mother." Alicia thinks to herself, the king also had an elder brother, but the younger brother, that is, the current king, took the throne. I don't think I can ask the king about this. After thinking this, she starts to leave. The prince then offers to show her the way out. Alicia responds, "You want to follow me to make sure I don't do anything bad to Lise, right?" The prince laughs and says, "No, it's nothing like that. You just lost your way, it's this way. Follow me." Hearing this, Alicia feels a bit embarrassed and follows him. The prince smiles at her, which leaves Alicia confused. She thinks, in the game, the prince only smiled for the heroine, but if I look at his smile now, it doesn't seem fake. As they go down the stairs, the prince extends his hand to help her. In the next scene, Alicia is seen practicing swordsmanship, which impresses Gil, who remarks, "I don't know where Alicia gets so much energy from. She does this every morning." Just then, Henry arrives and says, "You're originally from Riona, right?" Gil responds, "Yes." So, Henry is surprised and says, "Are you really from there? I didn't know." Gil realizes he was being tested and feels tricked. Henry then says, "Usually, you are afraid of everyone, but you're not afraid of Alicia. Do you like her?" Gil tells him to shut up and mind his own business. Henry then advises Gil to keep his emotions hidden if he wants to stay close to Alicia. Otherwise, someone might take advantage of it. Gil asks, "Why are you telling me this?" Henry explains, "My sister, Alicia, often picks fights with Lise, so it's good if there's someone sensible around to stop her." Alicia arrives at that moment and clarifies, "It's not that I hate Lise." Henry asks, "Then what's the reason?" Alicia thinks to herself, "I can't tell Henry about the Watcher thing, but I can say that my dream is to become the best villainess." She tells Henry this, adding, "I want to be a perfect villain and stand in Lise's way." Hearing this, Henry laughs, and Gil tells her, "People are going to laugh if you say things like that." In the next scene, they are seen traveling somewhere, and Henry is still laughing at Alicia, saying, I didn't know my own sister would be so funny. Alicia tells him, I'm not joking. Henry replies, all right, but if you want to get in someone's way, they better be someone special, like Lise. She could easily be the main character of a fictional story, and everything she says sounds like words of salvation. Even though I don't usually like girls like her, I ended up falling for her. Hearing this, Gil asks, could it be due to some magic? Alicia starts thinking, that could be possible, as everything seems to go in Lise's favor, which feels unnatural. Henry questions, do you think Lise is manipulating my mind? I don't think that's possible. There's magic that can temporarily manipulate someone's mind, but it doesn't last long, so I don't think Lise would use it. Alicia mentions that there could be magic described in ancient books she hasn't read yet, which might contain such spells. Henry then asks, do you really think Lise is using magic? I did say she's not my type, but she's beautiful, so any guy would fall for her. Gil apologizes for any offense, but Alicia assures him it's alright. In the next scene, they arrive at the academy, where Alicia thinks, I can't believe Lise is so clever that she's manipulating people. Her super fictional innocent behavior is just like in the game. It's natural that everyone would like an amazing girl like her. She considers how, in the game, everyone turned against her once they learned about her weak talents. That's why she worked hard to improve her strength, so things wouldn't turn out the same way. Then, as Alicia is lost in thought, Gil suddenly yells, run, Alicia. Alicia turns around and sees some men holding Gil down, realizing he's been ambushed. Before she can process what's happening, someone hits her on the head with a stick. In the next scene, Alicia opens her eyes and finds herself tied up in a storage shed, realizing she has been kidnapped. Alicia thinks, in the game, the Villainess was never kidnapped. At that moment, the men bring Gil in, and she sees he's badly beaten, which makes her furious. And with that, the episode ends. If you liked the episode, hit the like button, and if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next episode. Until then, goodbye.